Okay, today is the 24th of July and we are on the Nidana Samyutta. Nidana is concerned with dependent origination, most specifically dependent origination of suffering. Now we come to the 11th Sutta in this Samyutta. That's what I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. And he said, monks, there are these 4 kinds of nutriment for the maintenance of beings that have already come to be, and for the assistance of those about to come to be. What for? The nutriment edible food, gross or subtle. Second, contact. Third, mental volition. Fourth, consciousness. These are the 4 kinds of nutriment for the maintenance of beings that have already come to be, and for the assistance of those about to come to be. Let's stop here for a moment. So, these are 4 things that act like food to maintain our bodies, to maintain our physical body and our mental body. So, what are these 4 things? The first one is edible food. And edible food we know is necessary for our body for our body to survive. We need food, physical food. Then the second is contact. Now, I read to you the footnotes from the commentary. Says the nutriments are conditions. For conditions are called nutriments, ahara, because they nourish or bring forth their own effects. Although there are other conditions for beings, these 4 alone are called nutriments because they serve as special conditions for the personal life continuity. For edible food is a special condition for the physical body of those beings who subsist on edible food. In the mental body, contact is a special condition for feeling, mental volition for consciousness, and consciousness for name and form. This one may be a bit hard to understand, so I try to explain. Physical food, edible food, we understand. The second is contact. Once you have contact, then feeling arises, followed by perception, and then thinking, and then volition, deciding what to do. So, contact is the thing that triggers off the mental workings of the mind. So, that's why contact is nutriment for our mental body. Now, the third one is mental volition. Mental volition is here, the commentary says, is food for consciousness. But I think another interpretation we can use this mental volition. The Pali word is mano sancetana. I believe it has something to do with the will to live, because the will to live is very important for us to survive, for us to continue to survive. If there's no will to live, then a being will die quite fast. So, mental volition. And the fourth is consciousness. Consciousness is more for those beings that are about to come to be. For example, if the male and the female mate, then the egg is fertilized. Now the egg is fertilized, it does not have consciousness yet. So this being that is due to be born in the womb, it will enter this fertilized egg. And then that consciousness descends into that fertilized egg. That is the condition, the nutriment for that being to come into life. Now I come back to this contact and mental volition. This contact, without contact, you can see how contact is a food, is a necessary condition. For example, if a person is imprisoned, if you put somebody in prison and you cut him off from contact from other people, and you cut him off from contact even with the sunlight, put him in a dark room, with nobody to speak to, no contact altogether, very soon this person will die. So that's why contact is you can see how contact is a nutriment for the maintenance of a being. Because once you have contact, then you have interest in the world, feeling arises. There are things in the world that you perceive through your six senses. All this is contact. The world is perceived through contact at the six sense doors. So because we have interest in the world, then we want to survive. The will to live is generated. On the other hand, you consider another prisoner under the same circumstances. He's put in isolation in a room. He's cut off from contact from everybody else, and even the sunlight, and no sound, nothing. And although he should die very soon, there are some people who will survive. Why? Because that person may be thinking of his family, think of his children, his wife. So when he thinks, this of course comes from his memory, doesn't come from contact, comes from his memory. So when this memory of the family is generated, the will to live is very strong. So because of the will to live, even though he should die, he will hold on to life. So this, I believe, is the third nutriment mentioned here. Mental volition is the will to live. And then consciousness must come into the womb for that being to come to life. So you can see here why these four are called nutriments. And the Buddha continued, monks, these four kinds of nutriment have what as their source, what as their origin, from what are they born and produced. These four kinds of nutriment have craving as their source, craving as their origin. They are born and produced from craving. I stop here for a moment. What craving is this? This craving is craving for existence and craving for sensual pleasures. Because of this craving, so we want to continue with life. And the Buddha continues. And this craving has what as its source, what as its origin, from what is it born and produced. This craving has feeling as its source, feeling as its origin. It is born and produced from feeling. Stop here for a moment. More specifically, this is feeling. We have pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. It is the pleasant feeling we experience that gives rise to craving. To continue. And this feeling has what as its source? Feeling has contact as its source. And this contact has what as its source? Contact has the six sense bases as its source. And these six sense bases have what as their source? The six sense bases have mentality, materiality, phenomena as their source. And this mentality, materiality has what as its source? There's consciousness as its source, and consciousness has volition as its source, and volition has ignorance as its source. Thus, monks, with ignorance as condition, volition comes to be. With volition as condition, consciousness, etc., etc. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes cessation of volition. With the cessation of volition, cessation of consciousness, etc., etc. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. So here, so this sutta is about the 4 nutriments, how they feed our physical body and our mental body, and how they are necessary for beings to continue. The next sutta is 12.12. At Savatthi, the Buddha said, monks, there are these 4 kinds of nutriment for the maintenance of beings that have already come to be, and for the assistance of those about to come to be. What for? The nutriment edible food, gross or subtle. 2nd, contact. 3rd, mental, volition. 4th, consciousness. These are the 4 kinds of nutriment for the maintenance of beings that have already come to be, and for the assistance of those about to come to be. When this was said, the Venerable Molya Paguna said to the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, who consumes the nutriment consciousness? Because he thought consciousness is a nutriment, who consumes it? Then the Buddha said, not a valid question. I do not say one consumes. If I should say one consumes, in that case, this would be a valid question. Venerable Sir, who consumes? But I do not speak thus. Since I do not speak thus, if one should ask me, Venerable Sir, for what is the nutriment consciousness a condition? This would be a valid question. To this, the valid answer is, the nutriment consciousness is a condition for the production of future renewed existence. When that which has come into being exists, the 6 sense bases come to be. With the 6 sense bases as condition, contact. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, you see, the consciousness is a condition for the production of future renewed being or existence. So just like I mentioned just now, the egg in the womb is fertilized, then consciousness must come into that fertilized egg, and then it produces renewed existence. That being lodges itself in that fertilized egg. And then once that consciousness has come into that egg, then slowly the 6 sense bases are produced. Now, if we we think about it, this is not the only case of consciousness producing renewed existence, because consciousness in the Buddha's teaching is not a constant flow, It's not a constant flow. Consciousness in the Buddha's teaching is momentary. Consciousness arises and passes away. Arises and passes away. Arises and passes away. Right? So, whenever consciousness arises, that being comes into existence, right? And that being is alive when consciousness arises. And then when consciousness ceases, momentarily that being dies. And then when consciousness arises again, that being has come into life, and then it dies. But because this consciousness arises and passes away so fast that it would seem as though this is a continued consciousness, a stream of continued consciousness, but it is not so. Now, if we think carefully about it, every time this consciousness arises and passes away,